You guys, welcome to the Children's Ministry Wake Up Call podcast. I am super excited, you guys. We have an incredible conversation for you today with two of my dear friends in the ministry who are out there. Y'all part of this war, right?
That's
This
right.
war now. Ambassadors for Christ for the next generation. Today we are talking about leading with love. How do we make those connections with our children, with our families, with the volunteers who have been entrusted into our care? And I can't think of two better people to be having this conversation with. I have the Jordan Davis with us today and the Keturah Boston, and they are going to share so much wisdom when it comes to making those heartfelt connections with love. Go ahead, Jordan. Let us know who you are, and then Keturah, let us know a little bit for our listening audience who may not know who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Jordan Davis. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. I've been a children's pastor for about 20 years and love just networking. Networking, I feel like, is my gift from God. I think I just I can never figure out how to do that full time. I don't know how you network full time, but if I could have a dream job, that's what it'd be. But also, I love barbecue, and so I do a lot of cooking. And so a lot of people know me as the smoking pastor. Look that up on Instagram. I'd love for you to follow me. But most of all, what I love to do is anything that Jesus calls me to do, whether that's a food truck for free food for kids or partnering with families, partnering with other children's pastors. So I'm just here for the entertainment. I'm excited. This is going to be good.
And Jordan is being humble. His hand is in everything kids ministry. I mean, there are fingerprints all over the place in the background, in places you may not see, but the impact that he has is incredible. So Jordan, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Keturah, let us know who you are.
Oh, thank you so much, Esther. I'm excited to be here with you and Jordan today. My name is Keturah Boston, and I am the children's ministry pastor at the Potter's House North in Dallas, Texas, by way of New York. So I'm a New Yorker, and I lead and serve in ministry in Texas. That's really fun. I am married to my high school sweetheart. We have 4 amazing children, 2 in college, 1 in high school, 1 in middle school who is being homeschooled. And so our life just in and of itself is pretty exciting just inside.
Homeschooling a middle schooler. So you are already a superhero because I
Yeah,
can't do
sure.
that.
Well, I don't know about that, but as a family, we just enjoy serving together and serving the body of Christ, and hopefully living out and modeling what a family that serves together can look like. So I'm excited to jump into this conversation. We'll all learn more about each other, but this is a great one today. Glad
I
you all
love it.
are
I
ready.
love it. So I first met Keturah at the Orange Conference. And can I tell
Yeah.
you, first of all, she was doing like everything. I'm like, she's literally doing everything here. And I just sat back in awe. She's like, okay, I have a 2:00 and then a 2:30 and then a 3:00. I'll be doing this in this interview. But can I tell you, Keturah can attest to this, did not know her. Did not know her husband. When we saw each other, I mean, it was like a reunion had broken out. People around us were scared. They did not know what was happening and had no clue. We had first met each other for the very first time in this moment, and I knew that we were going to be lifelong friends. So excited,
Yes.
Keturah, that you are hanging out with us today. We are going to jump right into this, you guys, because when it comes to connecting and making these connections, trust is everything. If you don't have trust, you don't have anything. If I don't trust you, that is going to affect our relationship. A lot of times, if I don't trust you, I may not like you. And even if I'm there and I'm serving, I'm just on borrowed time, right?
Yeah.
Waiting until I'm about to move on to the next thing. So I want to ask you guys this question: what strategies or initiatives have you found in your experience to be most effective in building that camaraderie and trust among volunteers within a children's ministry team?
I think for me, I've had to learn, like, one of the biggest things I can do is be vulnerable.
Mm,
Let them know that I'm struggling and maybe I don't have the answers. My team was just talking this morning. We've been trying some new things over the last 4 weeks. And guys, we're failing and we know it and they know it. And so we sent an email this
Yeah.
morning. It's like, we know we suck at this. So can
Yeah.
you all help us brainstorm how to do something better? We're trying it.
Wow.
We're in a spot where we're almost growing too fast, like an unhealthy speed. And it's like, so we know there's more kids coming. So we got to figure this out. So how do we fix things on the fly? And I think that's through being vulnerable and saying, let's partner together, because none of us are doing this great. And that's probably a bigger thing for kids ministry. We're all struggling. So let's do it together and let's learn off each other.
I love that. I love that so much. So don't act like we're perfect, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
For
Look,
sure.
I get it. I think that that's so important to make sure that you're vulnerable. I mean, we're all people. I
Yep.
love it. Keturah, chime in on this.
Yeah, I love what Jordan said. So I'll just add to that. I won't repeat it because it's perfect.
Yeah.
I think one of my strategies has been very similar and just being organic,
Yeah.
allowing that trust to be built organically. I think spending time with our volunteers, spending time getting to know who they are outside of church and what they do, what they care about, what they love. They are important dates in their lives. Some of them are not just declining your planning center or your email invites to serve all willy-nilly. Some of them, they have big things coming up. They have graduations, they have weddings, they have anniversaries of the loss of a loved one. There's a season where, things are just important for them, or they're, moving through or working through something. And so just being sensitive to the fact that we could afford to be more human and that our volunteers and those we serve with are just as human as us. And so when we can organically get to know them and appreciate who they are outside of ministry, we can start to see each other like people. And so when I am vulnerable and I say, I feel like I'm missing it here, and I feel like you are the ones that can help. And while we all have things going on, if we can just muster up with that, whatever strength, whatever wisdom, whatever creativity we have and put it together to just do one thing better, then our entire ministry and our families will be better for it.
Man, I love that. What would you guys say to the person who's listening right now, who's saying to themselves, man, that sounds great, but I don't have time to build those relationships outside of my position. I got this going on. I'm carrying this. I got this program. I have this other job. For a lot of our listeners who might be bivocational, what advice would you give to them?
Like, you don't have time not to.
Mm,
Like, that is the thing. If you can,
love it.
there's certain things that I think as leaders that you can hand off, and certain things that you have to hold on to. And I think especially like that personal relationship, you have to do that, because the most important thing is the health of our leaders. For the health of our kids, they need the health of our leaders. And so you have to do that.
I love it. Keturah, are you on board with this? Or are you like, we'll spend time
Absolutely.
with
Like, nah.
Look, I could have ran around this whole office, but listen, that is 100% the truth. If you don't have time to love, then you don't have time to lead. And maybe this is not the
getting some
season.
singers here
Yep.
today, y'all. I hope y'all listening to this.
Yeah, because getting to know you says, I love you. Getting to know someone and being genuine about it, it is a love language. And saying that I see you, I hear you, I know you, and I want to grow with you. Now, here's the caveat. When it comes to time, we've also got to be realistic about time. As leaders and people with families and other things going on, no, we don't have a lot of time, but we have some time. And maybe that looks like us reallocating where we spend that time. So, there could be moments where you have to have pockets of conversations, or you have to make some personal attempts to email or to send a text. I do voice messages sometimes, or I'll do a video and I'll post it on our app and I'll say, hey guys, I can't text everyone today because I have dinner with my family after church, but I wanted to let you know that I appreciate the ways that you showed up for families, the way you served, the way you all came in my office and made sure the lamps were turned off because I ran out of there so fast. I didn't want to, have all my heaters and stuff going. So thank y'all for looking out for me. I heard about that. It's the little things like that. And I think it's little things over time that build that kind of consistency, that trust, and that longevity in your ministry. So I absolutely second what Jordan said.
I love that. I think it's so important for us. You mentioned something super important just about managing our time. I think that's so important for us as children's ministry leaders to hear. I don't think that we do it effectively enough. And it's because of our heart. It's because of our love for the ministry. It's because we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off in the name of the Lord,
Yep.
But when we are not operating in effective time management, then it affects how effective we can be. You know, I want to say Jim Weidman, he had did the first podcast. If you don't know Jim Weidman, you probably live under a rock, but that's fine because there is forgiveness in Christ Jesus.
It's grace.
Yep.
But he has a book, I think it's called Beat the Clock. Jordan,
Mhm.
if I'm wrong, you can correct
Yep.
me. But it is a great book. If you are listening today and you are struggling with time management, Beat the Clock by Jim Weidman is a great resource for you to pick up. Today, I want to cross our conversation over to communication because we hear it all the time. Communication is key. So when we're dealing in team settings, how do you guys ensure clear and effective communication? Keyword effective communication amongst team members, especially when dealing with a diverse group of volunteers. Keturah, you said it, who are all over the place, who got different schedules and different stuff going on. How can we manage that and really make sure that our message is out and that our message is heard?
Go ahead. You got this one. Go.
I don't think, I was going to say that's such a great question. I think again it goes back to intentionality.
Mhm.
Sometimes our intent and our impact can be two different things. I can have the best intentions to communicate well, clearly, efficiently, effectively, and it still not land depending on the mode. Across our ministry, we have a variety of age groups and proficiency when it comes to technology. And so some of our more seasoned saints, they still maybe prefer a phone call. They
Mm.
may prefer that email to be in letter form. And I may need to go ahead and adjust the font and put that in a 14 or 16-point font, and not be too fancy, and make sure like they have something in hand and they'll read it, to the next morning or something. There are people on the team that are happy to download the app and we communicate, amongst ourselves and amongst each other. It's a place where we can share photos and pictures and notes and all of those kinds of things. So that's just one form of communication. When it comes to just making sure that it's delivered effectively, I think it's really simple, and y'all might get upset for this. It's simply asking questions.
Yeah.
What did you hear me say? What does this sound like? Can anyone chime in? How does that sound? How does that feel when you hear me say that? Is there anything that's unclear? Because I don't want to keep repeating the same thing in a way that doesn't
Yeah.
make sense to people because it's clear in my mind, but it isn't being communicated that way. And
Yeah.
so I'll pause there because I know Jordan has some zingers as well, but those are the main ones for me.
Come on, Jordan, give us some zingers.
No, like this is where I'm horrible. Like I am not a good communications person when it comes to like this kind of stuff. And so for me, what I've had to do is put people around me that are really good communicators.
Love it.
And so I get in a room every Monday morning. I'm like, here is the word vomit on a whiteboard of what we need to communicate this week. I need you all to help me. So I have an awesome room that is able to make sure everything's done that week. Like you want to put me in and me to do a video, no problem. I got that. So they feed me, this is what we need to say. Here's one post-it note for the week of things I need to take away and do. But make sure if you're bad at communicating, if you're bad at the verbiage, or you're bad at like, I'm not an email person, I'm not a text person,
Mm.
don't email or text me because I'm probably not going to respond. And so people know that about me, and I make sure I'm very clear on that from the start. And so put people around you that are good communicators and get in a room and lock yourself in there, and they're going to make you do things that you don't want to do.
I
I
think
love
that
that.
that helps all of us to relax, Jordan, that
Yeah.
we don't have to be perfect,
Yeah.
that we can be vulnerable, that we could put strong people around us who have these strengths
Yep.
where we may be weak. I think communication is so important. I want to ask you guys this question because I think for some of us, it could be super dangerous just choosing to communicate in the way that we want to communicate.
Mm.
Oh, I like this platform, so I'm going to communicate here.
Yep.
Or we obviously have an app, so I'm going to communicate here. If you didn't get the message, I don't know what to tell you. We have this a platform that you should be following around with. And I just think that's the wrong spirit in
Yep.
which we should be coming from. We should be coming from a place where we are trying to get the message out no matter what. So I love this question on communication. I want to talk about something that may be a little uncomfortable for some people. I'm talking about me when I say some people. That is conflict resolution. You guys, this was so important to me. In the book I wrote, The Progressive Children's Ministry Leader, I dedicated an entire chapter, and I think it's called The Spirit of Offense. Because when we don't handle this conflict resolution thing right, I know so many of us were like, Jesus, just handle this in the spirit and let it work out later. But as leaders, this is something that we have to face. So my question to you guys is, since we know that conflict resolution is inevitable, regardless in any group dynamic, it does not have to be in children's ministry. I have had to break up a fight in the narthex, a large Presbyterian church before, with a choir director and a church secretary. So it does not just involve in children's ministry. But my question is this: how do you guys handle this? Like, how can we handle conflicts or disagreements among volunteers to really help to maintain that positive and cohesive team environment that we're all looking for?
I think I've had to realize, like, I don't like it. I hate it, and I'm not a conflict person at all. I'm not a confrontational person. So for me, I have to make sure I'm in the right environment, not always in the right moment. It's like sometimes I'll think
Mm,
that there's a certain moment that I have to handle it in, or it has to be at that instance, and then
yeah,
I'm going to overreact, or probably in my case, I underreact.
yeah, hmm,
And so if I can set myself up to do it in a safe environment, a place that I have a place, there's this place in town where I do all my hard meetings, because it's a place where I'm at every day. I have a lot of friends there. I have a lot of people that are going to smile at me, that are going to check on me, that are going to know I'm okay. And
yeah,
also it sets me up where a place where I'm relaxed, where I can have a heart to heart with that person, especially if it's a parent or a volunteer. Like,
yeah,
you've got to make sure it's a place that you've been prayed up on, and a place that you're going to be comfortable at. And I think it's a lot of times in kids ministry, we overreact because we're just trying to handle it in the moment. And
yeah,
those moments are going to pass,
yeah.
we just need to wait them out and get in a place where we're in a better headspace.
I love that, Jordan. Keturah.
No, I love that. I'm here for Jordan. Like he said, I need to make sure this place is
We're all here
consecrated.
for Jordan. That's what we're here
Like
to
I am here for that notion that let it be consecrated, let it be, safe for me
do.
mentally
Yeah.
and emotionally. I think as leaders, we undervalue
Mm,
the value and saying, I also have the right to feel comfortable. I don't always have to be the one that is in the hot seat, uncomfortable, in a bad position, handling the hard things on everyone else's terms.
mm,
So I just want to affirm you and just speaking that and declaring that for everyone listening, that we do not always have to take the brunt of abuse when it comes to, or the weight of those moments. We can manage them. The only other thing I will add, because I just love that so much again, is that when it's confrontation or conflict amongst your team, I think I have been saved by some proactive approaches as well.
mm,
Some conversations that just very frankly say, guys, we're not always going to agree. We're not
mm,
always going to get along. And there are days where we're going to love each other and we're still going to have our own stuff going on, but we show up and some of our other stuff may show up with us, and we need to
yeah.
in advance be okay in this moment to say, on it's not if but when this moment happens, that we will give each other grace and that we will see about each other instead of talking about each other,
Mm,
that we will try to speak to each other's hurt and not speak to each other hurtfully, and
mm,
that on my worst day you will love me still, because you will have a long enough memory to recall the relationship that we had on our best days for both of us.
wow.
So I think even that conversation and letting them know that I am not excluded from that.
Mm,
My feelings get hurt. I have long nights.
yeah.
I have family that depend on me too, not even just in my household, but I get 3 a.m. phone calls at times. And I may have my coffee and I may be coming in smiling. But if you see me disappear or steal away, please don't charge it to my heart. Like, see about my heart, check on my heart, and let's do that for each other. Now, when it comes to families and things that are external, I think having a moment to let my parents and my volunteers know, I want to see about both of you. I'm not here to take sides of people.
Yeah.
I want us to find resolution. This is not about sides because we are a community. So picking sides is saying that someone is going to be on the in and someone is going to be on the out. And at the end of this resolution, we should all find ourselves back restored as a community.
Yeah.
So what I will say is that I need to have a conversation over here, and we need to have a conversation over here. And at some point, we need to come back together, because that is the end goal. If we don't do that, then we didn't do resolution right. It doesn't matter how eloquently or how kind or how compassionate any of us sound in silos. If we can't come back together, then we've not done community well. And that is most important to me.
I love that.
Esther, I think that goes too to make sure all the conversations you have with people aren't just hard conversations. Like, I think we have those parents that we only talk to when their kid's horrible, or we have those volunteers that we only talk to when they're late or they don't show up. Like that, we have to make sure we're affirming people just as much as we're, having those hard conversations. Like one of the things that I noticed when I was here, when I first came, when I showed up to meet with somebody, they're like, "What do you need?" And so my goal over the last 5 years has been, I don't want somebody to see me and say, what does he need from me? It's what can he do for me? Or what can I do for them? I want to have, how are you doing mentally? How are you doing physically? How are you doing spiritually? To be the top 30 things I ask before I ask them to do something or to volunteer for something or I need something.
Jordan, let's cross over into that, because I think affirmation is so crucial and it's so important. And if we're honest with ourselves, volunteer retention, that there is a retention crisis that is happening, that a lot of leaders, especially in children's ministry, that they're feeling. And we need volunteers, right, for long-term growth to carry on our kids' ministry. So I want to ask you this question. What strategies do you employ to ensure that volunteers, that they feel valued, that they feel appreciated, that they feel motivated to continue to show up and to do the work enthusiastically?
I think celebrating obviously is one, but also like promoting them. Like for me as a leader, I don't want it to be about anything I did that day. Look what my volunteers did. It's not even my staff. Like, look what my volunteers did today.
Wow.
Your kid had a good day because Sherry spent time with them. She got on the floor at 70 years old. She played cards with them and she told them about Jesus on the ground. And that kid was a hard kid, but you know what? He had a smile for 5 minutes today, and that was a win. Like, celebrate those little wins, because that's the biggest thing we can do.
Absolutely. Keturah, what do you think?
Yes, I'm all in for the celebrating. I know, a lot of churches that I speak with, they always ask me, like, what do we do for like an appreciation in terms of an event? And I'm happy to help with those. You can Google those. Lots of churches are doing those and they're great. But I think, like Jordan is saying, kind of along the way, and I'm glad you asked this question, because our team has adopted this model that we celebrate each other along the way. We are affirming along the way. Like with my video messages and my voice memos, sometimes I can't specifically highlight every single person directly, while I'm in their company. But I do utilize and leverage the technology and the opportunities that I do have to say, hey, y'all, and I can hold my phone. Just want to tell y'all are amazing. I hope you got yourself a soda and a piece of chicken, like, after church. And just, let them laugh at me and have a ball. And, when I can share photos of things that I saw, like I saw this happen in the classroom. The photographer dropped these photos in Dropbox, and caught you guys having a great moment. I want to share these with you. Feel free to post them on your social media. Tag me, tag Pastor. There are times when I'll take some of those photos and I'll send them to my pastor and I'll say, I just wanted you to know, I know you didn't have a chance to pop in today, but this is what your church is doing. This is what, members of our congregation are doing, how they're showing up for kids and families. Look at this mom, look at this kid, look at this sweet little baby. And then my tagline is, I hope this made you smile today.
Wow.
And so again, it's the highlighting, it's showing them that you value them, what they do. And when you do that along the way, it really doesn't take a big thing. We're like, this is the moment. Either we're going to make it or we're going to miss it on showing them how much we appreciate them. If they feel it along the way, it even changes things in terms of retention. When people do have to step down, they're more likely to do it gracefully. They're more likely to do it supportively, timely. They'll be champions. They'll have great narratives to share when they leave, versus those who are leaving burnt out, frustrated, angry, upset. I mean, you can't have those. Some people are just angry, frustrated, and upset. And no matter what you do, them folks are leaving. They will storm, they will storm out of there and leave destruction in their wake. But I think little things like that too go a long way.
Absolutely. I love how you talked about the images and the pictures. I think that that is so important in kids ministry. If I could recommend anything, I think every kids ministry should have someone who's in charge
Mhm.
of going around to those different rooms, whatever your setting is, whatever your environment looks like, just capturing those
Yeah.
powerful images so we can show what is happening in our kids ministries. I think that it is so crucial and so important in our kids ministries because we're dealing with kids. So speaking of kids, I wanted to cross over and really talk about them and how we can connect with them. I want to shift over to children in particular because we know, I know you guys know you've been in kids ministry. You've met a lot of different, unique tykes out there. I'll call them tykes who have their own set of needs and preferences, sometimes annoying preferences, whatever those things are. But how do you guys ensure that you're connecting with each child on the individual level? And I know we're talking to a lot of leaders, and I will even shift this to how can we help our teams, and our volunteers who are entrusted with those precious babies, those little lambs of God. How can we help them to make those individual connections and really taking into account the different personality types and the interests and the backgrounds? What does that look like? What strategies do you guys have for that?
Well, I love getting on their level. Like I am a big dude. I am 6'4", big dude, and so for me, a lot of times in a lobby, you're going to see me on a knee, and it's getting harder the older I get. But you're going to see me on a knee because I can look those kids in the eye, and that makes them know that I care about them because I'm willing to get down on their level, but also listening. I think
Mm,
we so many times understand over communicate with adults and we don't get down and talk to the kids. So when a new family comes
yeah,
in, I'm going to introduce myself to the kid before I'm ever going to introduce myself to adults. And then
right.
also, I know those kids just want to be heard, especially the kids that we know that
Mm,
are hurting, that are hard kids need to be
yeah.
heard. And so listening and just letting them have that ear. Come tell me whatever you want to tell me. It may be that your goldfish died and we're going to pray for that goldfish, even though we find out that goldfish died like 6 months ago. We're going to do that because it's important to you on that day. I think we
Yeah.
have to remember that whatever's on that kid's mind that day it's going to totally, transition how the day goes. So if they can get that off their chest at the very beginning, so we try to play a lot of large group games at the very beginning, like tell me your favorite something, just because they're going to tell you something that day that's going to be silly. They may be trying to get somebody else in the room to laugh, but once they get that off their chest, they're going to be able to listen to the Bible story that day a lot more clear.
I love it. I love it. Keturah, any strategies for us?
Yes, I love that. Our strategy is very similar to Jordan's. We definitely employ like the getting on the kids level deal. I think you can win the heart of a kid and a family,
Yep.
just by them knowing that that is the priority. And it is getting harder, Jordan. I was signaling you. I was like, yeah, me too, brother. But you got to do. I will say this in all honesty. It's not me anymore that's getting to know kids in depthly on an individual level. That is not where I am anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know them, all of their quirks and all of their personalities, but I know every single kid. If I've seen them at least once, I recognize faces and I'm intentional about learning names. But one of the strategies that we use to help their peer group community and the servant leaders who are serving them each week get to know them better is a strategy called Circle. So it's our community circle. We come up with maybe 2 or 3 questions. They vary in levels depending on the age group of the kids, and we'll ask something like, when's the last time something really made you laugh really, really hard? And we have a talking piece. They'll go around, they'll share, they can pass if they don't want to share or they need more think time.
Yeah.
And it can go all the way to something, when's the last time something really made you sad? And we can share that and we get all kinds of information that really gives the students insight about each other and their servant leaders. For example, one year we asked, this is one of my favorite stories. There's so many though. My husband asked a question in our small group to a young lady and said, what's your favorite number? And she said 11. And, kids were just sharing their favorite numbers. But when we got to her, she explained why. And she said, well, it's 11 because it was the age I was when my father passed away.
Mhm.
So we didn't ask a deep question. We asked a very surface level question, and we let them shape what they wanted to share, their level of comfort. And so then we used that intel to say, well, we know that summer's coming up and Father's Day is in June. And so what does that look like for how we serve her when her family shows up on Sunday and we're doing Father's Day crafts? Let's get creative and talk to her family. And so we did something like something that she could make and save a letter to her father, tell her how she's doing it, tell him how she's doing at 12. Just something that was thoughtful for her. And we found that it caused other kids to share. So I say all that to say, just being intentional in those ways. So my job is, while I'm not the one that gets to hear all of these stories, I'm counting on the environment being conducive to those moments happening, to those leaders learning, and to those leaders being able to come to the table and share those things with me and make me a ball of mush,
Yeah.
because I'm laughing or crying at
Yeah.
the amazing stories that they get to share.
Wow, that's
Esther,
incredible.
I think you got to hit on that rabbit trail for a minute, because I think talking to kids leaders everywhere, I think there's almost shame in what Keturah just said, that
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. I found myself in that spot. Like, I don't teach every week. I don't do this. I don't do that. I don't build relationships like I used to. Everything I went into kids ministry for, I probably no longer do. And I think I'm seeing a trend of almost like shame in that, oh, well, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. That's exactly what you should be doing. You are replicating yourself. You are doing discipleship. You're building up volunteers. Like, I think we have to remember that. And for everybody that's watching, like, you are still being used by God to do kids ministry. In fact, you're probably doing more now than you ever did before.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm not going to add anything to that, because that was just incredible wisdom that you guys just poured out.
Yeah.
Using
Thank
that
you,
intel,
Jordan.
using that intel and to guide the next steps. Just absolutely incredible. Jordan, thank you so much. Totally agreed. There are people who are listening who need to hear that. And you know what? I'm going to boldly say, if you are the children's ministry leader, you are the head person and you are the leader and you are doing all that stuff. You are running around like a chicken with your head cut off. You are teaching all the lessons. You are crossing over, doing this, doing that. Yes, there are times when we may step in and do that, but I would really challenge you to step back and look at who you impact. Who are the leaders whom God has entrusted into your care? Who are you missing? Who are you not impacting?
Yep.
What disciple are you not building up and equipping because you're too busy doing stuff you're supposed to be teaching them to do so that
Yep.
they
Come
can?
on, Esther.
Good.
So
Yep.
Jordan, I'm with you 100% on that. I want us to cross over into partnering with parents, because we hear this term all the time, right? Partnering with parents. I'm like, I think I'm doing it. I don't know if I'm really doing it effectively. But I want to ask you about, because we know family involvement is essential. We know that for a holistic approach, because the truth is we cannot do everything when it comes to the spiritual development of our kids. We need their parents. They are with their parents most of the time. So partnering with parents is so crucial. Here's my question: how do you actively engage and support families in their role within the children's ministry? And what strategies do you guys have, or maybe you've used before, to employ to foster open communication and collaboration? And I would even add to help support them to feel like, I can do this. I can be the spiritual guide in my own household, because I think I've been on both sides, and I know I've been guilty of saying, you know what, they'll be good. They went to children's ministry. Don't need me to do nothing else. And then a pandemic happened, and it was so funny because I'm like, oh my goodness, we ain't going to church. What these kids gonna get? And my husband is cracking up at me. He's like, okay, children's ministry. You having a panic attack. Get your Bible out. Use your creativity. And we're gonna do children's ministry at home. So you guys chime in on that. What can we do? What strategies can we employ to really partner with them more effectively?
I think one of the simplest things we can do is just resource them.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of resources that we know about. That's what they're looking for. A lot of times they're just looking for, how do I handle this, or how do I handle that conversation? And they're not looking for some genius words from us. They're looking for some resources that are practical, put in their hands. So that's one. And two, something we found that has worked really well is getting them involved in the people that are really in their lives. So we love doing like small group picnics. Set a small group Sunday that the second graders are going to spend time with their small group leaders and eat with the people that are really truly pouring into their lives, and they're going to get to know them. And then that's when, if you want your small group leaders to go to ball games, that's when that's going to happen, because they're going to find out about what sports they're playing. They're going to find out, oh, the parents are overwhelmed with this certain thing, and they're going to figure out how that helps. So it's almost like a small group in our church. You're going to get that going for your kids ministry.
I love it. Keturah.
Yes, that is just so brilliant. I heard another leader say something very similar like 2 years ago, and that thought has never left me. Creating opportunities, not just to resource the parents, but to connect parents to one another. And that has kind of been the secret sauce. When families are getting to know each other and finding out that the composition of their families are sometimes even similar. You may start with knowing that we have both of our second graders are in the same class, but now we find out that we also have toddlers that are, in a similar class. And we both have students in student ministry. You have a 10th grader, I have an 11th grader. That turns into something. And then we find families like this. Oh, this is just so good. It's just too good to be made up. But literally this last Sunday, I was about to go put all the iPads away and put them back in my office. And I still saw families hanging out in the lobbies with children of all ages. And I've seen this before, but there was something about this. They were the last family standing, and they all had their phones out trying to figure out where they were going to go eat. And the kids were huddled trying to figure out what they were going to do, and they're running circles around the parents. But it was like this little community had formed, and just over time, them meeting in the same place, them stopping to talk, they just realized, hey, why don't we, we all want to eat. Let's see if we can go get some barbecue. Let's go see if we can take the kids someplace where they can run all this off before we head back home. And so just creating organic moments for that to happen is truly important. But when it comes to parent partnerships, I think if you're trying, you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just saying it. If you're trying, if you're making any effort, right, to connect with parents and to connect parents to one another, you are doing it. Take that and just go to the next step. I think that's really where we are these days. Just take that and go the next step further, because your parents will begin to trust you and lean into you a little bit more, and they will give you the intel into what they need as far as next steps. I can't be at a game. Can you show up for me? Absolutely. Those things happen organically.
I love it. I love it. I want to close with this question because I think that this is super important, you guys. I think building a sense of belonging is so important in kids ministry. I mean, if we have children who are coming and they feel rejected and they don't feel like they belong in our spaces and in our environment, I would question whether we're really doing our job. It is our job to create that environment where they feel safe, where they feel nurtured, where they feel like they belong. So my question is this: how do you create an inclusive environment where everyone feels welcome, everyone feels accepted, and everyone feels valued? Because I think that for a lot of us, we want to hope that children and families feel valued and accepted because it's the church. This is our job. Come on in. But I think the truth is there are particular situations that happen around us, or circumstances that are going on in certain families where they may not feel as included. How do we create that environment and that safe place to really make sure that they are feeling like they belong, no matter who they are, no matter their socioeconomic status, no matter the color of their skin, whatever it is. Chime in on that, you guys.
I would say we can't try to fast forwardly force it. That you have to provide opportunities and environments for it to happen. I see this even was like, if we get on the like diversity thing for a minute, like and even for us, like we have a Spanish service, an Arabic service, and our normal English service, which are already pretty diverse. We tried making meals to where people would try to eat together, try to blend all those services together, and we tried to force it. What we realized is everybody just sat with themselves anyway. What's happening now is for a year we haven't done anything. We've just been allowing it to organically brew. And guess what? All these people are going out to eat together. They're doing things together. I see their kids hanging out. I see all our kids in services sitting together. And we stopped forcing it and allowed it to naturally happen. And I think that's a conversation that's way bigger about a lot of things. And I think sometimes,
right?
I think sometimes we try to force it, or because of circumstances nationally, we say, "Oh, I'm going to force this to happen," and we're not ready for it. But when you allow God to do it, man, it's going to happen, and everybody's going to be like, "What just happened?" Oh, well, God took care of it.
I love it. I love it, Keturah.
Now, I love that. Just call it what it is. We're not forcing anything. Organic might be the coined word of this entire episode, letting things happen organically. I think for our team, the first time I really tried to be intentional about this, because I was actually not sure. Now, I come from education. I've been in children's ministry for 23 years and education for 20. And what I have seen is that you cannot force, but you have to identify, what does that even mean when I say it? So when I say diversity and wanting everyone to feel welcome, I'm talking about the kid who wants to come to church and the kid who did not want to come to church. I'm talking about the parents who know the gospel and the parents who do not. I'm talking about the families who are more well-to-do and the ones who are barely making it, the ones who are in between. I'm talking about the parents who pretend that they love the Lord and will shout all over our church, but our kids are knowing that they have abusive and toxic relationships and things and encounters happening in their home. I'm talking about the kid who did not just not have breakfast, but also did not have dinner. There's just all kinds of things, special needs, from the severe and profound to the more mild in extremities, and everything in between. The kids that are just having a bad day and they have a special need on that day. The kid who has a great family upbringing, they don't deal with any of that, and they just want to see Jesus and hang out with friends that don't go to their school. I think really identifying, what do we mean when we actually say that? Yep. Then we start working strategy from there. Okay, so if a kid shows up and they don't have this, how do we frame the examples that we give when we're trying to make the word of God more applicable and more relevant? How do we frame the videos, the content, the projects, the lessons that we share, the take home things? How do we acknowledge certain things? What language do we use to describe people other than ourselves or with differences than ourselves? All of that is what we should be doing. So when you do that, I think when that level of intention is put, and I'm not saying we've mastered it, I'm saying that's where I've started. Yep. So we're hoping that our intent and our impact will, at some point, they will collide and they will do exactly what we expect to see in heaven, right? Where there's just this mesh of people who love Jesus and all feel accepted in the kingdom. But until I think we get realistic about organically building that and being intentional about what we actually mean when we say this, and not saying it because it's a social media buzzword, then.
Exactly.
I love it.
Especially when we get on the special needs kick of I loved yesterday, one of our kids that has Down syndrome was sitting, and he was like, so we were talking about paralyzed man, and he was the one that wanted to be laying on the ground, and he usually cannot take a bunch of attention or take all the kids touching him, but he was able to act out that story, and we put him in a place where he felt safe and he felt protected. And that's what it's about. And I think we got to do better at that, and not just trying to create a separate room that we're going to put kids that may not fit our puzzle perfect church in.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
There you have it. Jordan, Keturah, thank you so much for pouring so much wisdom on us today. You guys, it is the Wake Up Call in Children's Ministry podcast, leading with love, building connections with children, family, and volunteers. We will see you next time.
See ya.
Bye, guys.
See ya.